Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, and as always, I'm joined in the studio by James and Callum. How you going, boys?
Hello, good. How are you?
Good. Interesting show. We have our, for now, I'll call the final episode of our, we'll say, us reviewing and talking about Disney.
I was going to say,
stuff.
this is the last time we should talk about Disney stuff, because we've talked about it for like 70 times now.
I know. But there's always something new to talk about. It's not our fault.
Yeah, I think from now, obviously, we'll talk about it when there's a big new drop on it. But I think this is the last time for at least the foreseeable
Yeah,
future.
unless there's like a major release or something like that, obviously.
Watch, next week Disney will be like...
Yeah. Next week. So see, they just they got to keep doing things to keep us talking about it.
Yeah.
We're feeding into their plans.
Because as you know, they listen to this show.
That's right.
It's not Bob Iger anymore. Who is it? It's someone else.
I had the name. Bob Chapek?
Yeah, Bob Chapek.
Another Bob.
Yeah, there's another Bob. Bob's a popular name.
For Disney, I guess, yeah.
Speaking of Bob Chapek, Deadline actually released an article yesterday that talked about how Disney Bob Chapek feels like there's going to be a shorter window between theatrical release and streaming release.
Yeah.
Because he says that the consumers might start to feel impatient now that they've got a taste for the quick releases. I was like, they really do listen to the show.
But it took till the end of the world. It took till a pandemic for them to realize that you can't, they have to, shorten the.
But they also got a taste of this with Mulan, right? Because they made a substantial amount of money they otherwise wouldn't have made if it went to theaters.
Yeah. Who would have thought giving people easy and efficient access to movies will pay off?
Because I was thinking about, I'm like, I wouldn't pay, because they're releasing movies on the cinema and
simultaneously,
to pay, pay-per-view. What do you call it?
30, yeah.
You
can rent
premium
it.
streaming, yeah.
And
Oh
then
no, actually, technically you buy it.
Premium, it's like premium, and then it goes. I think it goes off after a while.
Yeah, it's basically pay-per-view.
But then after a couple of months, it goes back on free to watch. So I'm like, no one's gonna pay for it, right?
With the case of Mulan, it was $30, and then it unlocked onto your Disney account, and they just gave it to you. And then after a couple months, it went free.
Yeah, but now it's free. But that's what I'm saying is, why would you pay for it if you can wait a couple months? But everyone paid for it. I'm assuming, especially people with kids.
Yeah, I think it depends on the film, because I think that if they would say Matrix 4 comes out, and then I'm like, okay, well, I can wait 3 months for it to be released on streaming, or I can give him $30 to watch it now.
And it's also
I'll probably pay now.
Yeah, it's also a quantity issue, right? You and all the boys go to see the movie. Collectively, you're spending $100.
Yeah,
you get all the boys over to your house and watch it on your projector.
Yeah, it's like pay-per-view.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
That way, you're saving money as a group rather than individually.
And it would cost virtually nothing anyway.
So if you had 4 or 5 friends and you're each paying $4 or $5, that's a lot cheaper than going to the movies. And you're
kind of still participating in that movie culture of going to the movies, even though it's at your house. You're still getting snacks. You're seeing it with people.
Yeah, it's still an event.
It's still that engagement.
Sort of. Yeah.
The only negative is obviously it's at the expense of movie theaters.
Yeah,
because you're not supporting any local.
That being said, Chapek didn't say they were going to stop supporting theaters.
The idea was
there's going to be lesser time. He said that the consumers feel like there's no point in there being a period after theatrical runs where the movies are just gathering dust.
And it's true.
Which is what we talked about before.
Especially in Australia.
I think on the old show where there's that big period where it's like, I want to watch that movie again.
6 months of
but
dust.
You have to wait months for it to be released on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And that's never made any sense.
I don't remember if we probably talked about it on the show, but it's like, you go and you see a movie, it's like, if you really love that movie, you want to watch it again, you have to pay full price, go back out, and go back in.
There's that weird dead spot between the end of its theatrical run and its
released
physical media.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Is the only way to see it again is to pay to go to the movies again.
Yeah.
Whereas, then otherwise you have to wait for physical or streaming months and months after.
And if you think about it, it's a loss of revenue. Because the sooner you get it to streaming, the sooner you can continue to capitalize.
Because they're still working in an old
world mentality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The idea was that you just keep it going in the cinema, you make as much money as possible for as long as possible. Then later you bring out, but by that point,
I suppose that also keep in mind, I'm not a businessman.
Yeah.
I pretend to be for the show, as we all do. I guess that the idea is, by the time you release it on media, there might be some hype for it because people are like, oh, finally we get to watch it again.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I'm like, that's the only thing I could think of,
Yeah.
like why it would be seen as a positive in the industry. But it must be because it's been done for so long.
Yeah.
There must be a reason they do it.
I honestly, I know there's a reason, and I can't even think of it, and that's probably because it was a dumb reason.
Yeah, knowing Hollywood, it has
Yeah.
to do with tax or something.
It's something shifty, no doubt.
But still, it's good news. Good news for people like us who love movies and want to be out, that
Yeah,
turnaround reduced.
As much as the pandemic sucked, it did mean that I could watch. Eventually, when we were out of lockdown, I could watch Tenet in IMAX, and then like a couple weeks later, bought it on 4K and watched it again.
Well, the
in
whole
my house.
industry sort of shifted.
Yeah,
Because it had to survive.
yeah.
So we got more digital content.
But I will say though, we've been going to the movies quite frequently lately, and it's so nice to get back to it.
It is, but now all the services, the movies they actually hope for, they're holding on to them for now.
Yeah.
They're getting delayed until 2022, the end of 2021,
Yeah.
theater releases, because they want to make that money out of them.
That's the
So
thing.
90% of the movies, we have an exception this week,
Yeah.
but like 90% of the movies we've seen at the cinemas recently are pretty much garbage because the only movies they're throwing out are the movies the studios don't want or don't have faith in.
Well, yeah, I mean, and as I said on one of our Zoom episodes, I'm at the point now where I'm only going to go to the movies for the big releases, which are the ones that are going to draw crowds anyway. Otherwise, I can wait for streaming for most of the stuff.
Yeah.
Because most of the stuff ends up being not that good.
Yeah.
The majority of movies
Especially
aren't
now.
that good.
We didn't talk about these on the show, but Callum and I, what was it? What movie did we see? Wrong Turn?
Oh,
Wrong
yeah.
Turn.
You guys see all those crappy horror movies,
I like
though.
horror. We like horror movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was garbage.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
like not even worth talking about on the show.
It's
Yeah.
Just don't see it.
For a start, it's a modern remake of a horror movie. Their track records are bad to begin with.
All the modern remakes of the classics.
They're remaking all the early 2000s stuff now.
Yeah,
We've gotten to the point where that stuff is...
And that wasn't good to begin
like,
with.
like I said,
Yeah, a lot of that stuff wasn't that good.
like I said though,
Just wait for Jeepers Creepers, the reboot.
Oh, no. But for me, it's like nice to be getting back out to the cinema, seeing things on a big screen. It's a shame it all sucks, but it's on a big screen though.
What we're talking about tonight's pretty good.
No,
Yeah,
this is
Although
the exception.
tonight's the exception. Yeah.
And yeah, the film we're talking about this week, The Exception.
Yeah. Well, and then actually, off the top of my head, the release schedule goes dead again in terms of
Yeah,
theatrical.
it's because we're still in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
Effectively.
Yeah.
We're not going to see anything good at the movies really until the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's if that and that will Spider-Man is like December 17th.
June. I think June. James Bond.
That'll get pushed back.
He's gonna get pushed
Yeah.
again.
I would say that these are all potentially coming out this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the
moment,
never know. I would just wait and
Matrix
see how
4
how
apparently.
it also all just depends on really America and how the vaccination efforts go.
That's
and that
true,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. Because if America's not in a good place, all these movies are getting pushed back.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it
'Cause
doesn't
that's the
really
biggest
matter.
market.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So Disney Plus.
Disney Plus
is
Star.
Disney Plus Star. We've had a little bit of time to sit with it. James, what are your thoughts before I?
Well, I haven't had a lot of time, but I did go through just to see what was on there. Much like Disney Plus when it first came out, it's surprising there's not a lot of stuff considering Disney owns everything in the whole world. But it's still early days.
Rights issues in Australia are a little bit
It's that too.
complicated, Yeah.
And it's early days.
It also wouldn't surprise me if they're still having to digitize things or whatever. And
Well,
get
yeah,
it going.
that's what I'm saying. Is
Yeah.
as time goes on, it'll obviously get bigger. But at the moment, you could scroll through everything in Star pretty quickly.
Yeah, you could. I was
See-
actually surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see all the highlights. For obviously there's all the classic movies, Fox movies, Aliens, Predators, Die Hards, and all that stuff. Commandos on there, all cool old Fox movies. So you got all that. But for me, like the TV shows are the draw.
The draw, yeah.
Because
MASH.
for me, 11 out of 10 best streaming service. It's got all
Both
seasons of
movies?
MASH. All of MASH.
All of MASH.
Which is
I
far as I'm
want
aware-
to talk in MASH a little bit in greater detail after we just overview.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I'm like, you know what, Disney's really rubbing me the wrong way. They're such an evil corporation. I'm like, maybe I should cancel. I'm like, I know we do the show, like we watch so much, I shouldn't cancel. And then Nathan's like, they've got MASH on Disney Star and it looks really good. And I was like, best streaming service ever, worth every penny, just for
Mate,
MASH.
I have thoughts. But like, yeah, I think you're right. At the moment, the library is quite small, but I think that's all tied
Yeah,
up
yeah.
into
Well,
licensing.
like they
As
have-
Calm said, some of it will have to be cleaned up.
Yeah, like I think last week you mentioned they have some seasons of shows, but not all of them.
and that would all be just rights
And
issues.
yeah, eventually that'll
I think
fall back in.
We were talking about this before. I'm not sure if it was on the air or not, but Disney, they've come at like they didn't have to come out with swinging with Disney Plus or Disney Plus Star. They could have just sat back and been like, all our new movies are coming here.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this with Nintendo. You know, Nintendo's very
I was having the same
finicky.
thought. I was having the same thought. It's that Nintendo thing. It's like they're weird and they make strange decisions.
It's like we know people are going to buy stuff, so we don't have
Yeah.
to do anything.
But
that kind of mentality.
Every first party game you get has that quality, Nintendo quality guarantee.
Yeah.
And most of them, like the game or not, they're all really high quality. They'll run at 60 frames
Very
a second.
polished, yeah.
And they're polished. You know what you're getting.
But they release things weirdly.
But they release things weirdly.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Disney's
limited
almost,
numbers.
there's some analogs to Disney Plus here, I feel.
Yeah.
Because they don't always make all the correct decisions or all the weird decisions, but they come at it from...
You know, they have a really good creative team, but their executive team seems to not quite understand what people want. It's like Disney.
Yeah.
So
but
it's like Disney, like Nintendo, for example, right,
Yeah.
has some of the best development teams in the industry.
yeah.
But of course, the people at the top who make all the decisions,
exactly.
they're like, oh, we'll release this game that people have been asking for 3 years until March.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you look at Disney, it's like, okay, people want Mulan, pay us $30
Yeah.
first. And it's the same thing. It's like it's that
But
executive
it's like-
and creative disconnect.
I think what Nathan's getting at is that unlike Nintendo with Disney Plus, they seem to be going in the right direction.
That's what I was
A
going to
more
say.
consumer friendly
They're coming at...
direction.
Like, Disney can do whatever they want. But,
Yeah.
But they are coming at this with the right frame of mind. We'll get to the tech specs in a minute.
Yeah.
But they're doing it in a consumer-friendly direction with good faith. So far.
So far, yeah.
I'm kind of interested to see how I understand Mulan was like a pay-per-view thing at first. I'm kind of interested in seeing if they take that approach with their Marvel movies. So if like Ant-Man 2 comes out, will they be like, you can get it on streaming if you pay $30? I'm like,
I think it all depends on the pandemic and
yeah.
American.
I feel like the symbiotic relationship with Marvel movies and the theaters is too big. Like, Spider-Man is only coming to theaters. That's indicative of what will happen so far.
that's true.
So
There
far
is
on
a
paper,
difference.
the
There is a
new-
difference
That's also
in sales.
that also might be because of the Sony thing.
Yeah. But that sort of idea of these movies we know are going to make us $500 million at the box
Yeah.
office.
Yeah, they
That's
don't
the
have
other
to take
thing.
risks
Yeah,
with them.
they at the end of the day, they still know all the money comes from the big box office
Yeah.
numbers.
Exactly. And are they that confident in Disney Plus yet to take a risk?
Yeah,
Probably not. And it's fair enough. They know they're going to make 500 mil from X, Y, and Z movies.
Yeah.
And
right?
Disney Plus is still relatively new too.
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's one of those things where movies where they can take more risks. Like, I guess Mulan had some bad press due to one of the
Yeah.
actresses' opinions on certain issues.
yeah. Like
And-
Pixar's Soul was never gonna be the biggest blockbuster in the world in the middle of a pandemic. So it was like
Exactly.
the safe
So
choice to be like, here it's on
It's,
streaming.
it's a good idea for them to take these riskier movies and be like, look, you can pay us $30, you can watch it here. Because
Yeah.
especially as we said, kids with families, stuff like that, it makes more financial sense. You know,
Yeah.
people are doing it tough. Objectively, it's a good decision.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to have to pay for each kid's ticket and like
Yeah.
whatever they want from the candy bar. And it
Wrangle
becomes,
the kids into the movie theater. yeah.
Exactly. And that spreads the virus. Like, that's a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think the tentpole films, the Marvel blockbusters, my opinion at the moment,
All the money makers.
is all the money makers will stay in theaters.
Yeah.
They might, you might be able to purchase it before rental through Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Something like that. There'll be a middleman.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
That's how I see the smart thing.
That's definitely probably the case.
It's like, maybe before it becomes available to rent or stream, you can pay $30 to unlock it on your Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
It'll be something in the middle like that where it keeps
we'll
Disney
still
happy,
release it
keeps the
theatrically,
theaters happy, keeps the accountants happy.
Yeah.
Like a pre-order, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Definitely, yeah.
As for the actual Disney Plus Star as a service, Disney Plus has an amazingly high bit rate that I'd never noticed before. Because all the stuff I've been watching on Disney Plus has been Dolby Vision, 4K.
Yeah, it's like
HDR anyway.
Mandalorian, WandaVision.
Yeah.
They're brand new shows made
You
for
expect them to look
4K TVs. It's like,
And
of course they're going to look great.
yeah, but
for
I've been watching some
Dolby
older
Vision.
content. We'll talk about MASH in a bit, but
Yeah.
I watched The Rock. I've seen some like bits and pieces of other shows.
Yeah.
And like I've watched The Rock on Netflix. It didn't look
The
amazing.
Sean Connery.
Yeah, the Sean
Michael
Connery
Bay, yeah.
and Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage. Yeah.
And it didn't look amazing on Netflix. I watched it on Disney Plus, and it's the best looking version of the movie I've ever seen.
yeah.
And I'm like, why is it? Is it because they own? Is it because they own the
Yeah.
source material?
Yeah.
Like, can they source the best version of the movie?
Perhaps, yeah.
Maybe.
I also think money's just not a factor to them. Maybe
No,
see,
exactly.
That's true.
because Netflix, of course, was in debt
They're
for a long
bleeding
time,
money,
and
yeah.
they were always a famous, at the top of the food chain streaming service.
Yeah.
But the financial decisions that they had to make on a daily basis probably aren't ones we think of here in the studio.
Yeah.
Like the things like
Borrow.
they
borrow.
do have, like, for example, there's not that there used to not be too many non-originals on Netflix that were in like proper 4K.
Yeah.
There are a few now, but like back a couple of years ago, you only really got originals in like that real high def.
Yeah.
So, but Disney, of course, they're like, well, it's a streaming service. They have the mouse behind them.
Mm. Everything is
Just
everything's
a credit
in 4K,
card. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, just whatever they're sourcing, just give
Yeah.
us don't mess around, the highest quality available to them.
Yeah.
It's the
probably
Xbox
answer.
Microsoft thing where Xbox is a tiny portion of Microsoft's revenue, and they're just like, do what you want, kids.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Amazon thing. It's like Amazon Prime Video. Sure, Bezos
Do it
doesn't
all,
care. Daddy
yeah.
doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's like, take his credit card. It's fine. It's a
Yeah.
drop in the ocean, you know?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the mouse, probably.
Probably, yeah.
But they're going at it the right way. I was
Yeah.
doing some research on the bit rates, and on Netflix in Australia, or with my home internet connection anyway, 4K usually caps out at like 14 megabits per second, which is because obviously Disney encodes their products and their streams differently than Netflix. Netflix famously had a little bit of criticism because it was forced to cap its
Yeah.
streaming bit rate because of COVID and work from home stuff. Disney, I don't know if they've done or thought about that or been instructed to by the government, but their bit rate for standard, from what I've read on the internet, their bit rate for standard high definition content is like 28. Just standard, whatever you're watching, it'll go as high as it can.
Their regular high definition content looks crystal.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. And I don't know if it's just because they don't really care about limiting bandwidth, or their streaming is hardcore, like
Yeah.
their encoding software. I was talking to Alex at work, and he mentioned the fact that there could be some sort of crazy upscaling tech going on behind the scenes a little bit.
Well-
Sharpening, making the image look a bit better.
Yeah, we were talking about it the other night off mic, and I was questioning. I'm like, yeah, they didn't have to put this level of effort in, and the fact that they did is great. But I'm like, why? Like, what are they
yeah.
up to?
Well,
but I think
is it some sort of back end technology that they don't really have to
yeah,
worry about?
it probably just
or is
comes
it-
down to that they're doubling down on streaming services from now on. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, we're gonna take over streaming. That's the
also-
future.
They also want to. Let's directly compare it to Binge for a second,
Yeah.
right?
Oh.
Binge is
Yeah.
a service that was kind of rushed. They
Thrown
didn't. They had.
together,
Rupert hates its existence.
Yeah, it was like it's like this
It's
thing
a
they kind of
contractual-
they kind of released with no fanfare.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the service isn't the greatest.
Yeah.
It's a
But-
contractual obligation that
you look
Rupert
at-
had to meet.
Disney, I don't think want to be seen as a company who just releases something because reasons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're as big a brand as they are, and they are a global brand, if they're gonna release something globally to like the world market, you want a level of quality that says yes, this is a Disney product. Now I'm not a huge Disney fan, but I'm confident that whenever Disney release a movie, whether it be hand drawn 3D or it be a game or whatnot, like Nathan said, it's like that Nintendo seal of quality thing, and that extends to the app as well. So if they're going to be releasing a streaming app, why wouldn't they deliver the very best quality they possibly can? Because their reputation as a business, we know that ethically they're probably not the greatest company on earth,
Yeah.
but to families, that brand is gold.
Yeah.
I think the reason that it's so good, is usually the simplest one. They want to do it well, as even with the picture quality.
And they're
Yeah.
fighting
They-
against
yeah,
the
they
titans of
they
the
have to
industry.
compete against Netflix, Hulu.
Yeah,
well, not
Netflix.
Hulu, but,
Yeah,
whoops.
Netflix is like the king of streaming.
Yeah.
Amazon is the biggest company ever, and so they have to put all their resources in to become king of that market. And they probably know that from now on, streaming is going to be people's preferred way of watching things.
And it's interesting because they deliver content that no one else can. Because a lot of before Star at least, their big draw was their originals, right?
Yeah.
So and of the IPs they own,
Well-
like original Star Wars content, original
Yeah.
Marvel content, not to mention the other franchises that we
Pixar.
don't really put too
Yeah.
much stock into, that other people like niche markets
Yeah.
might find incredibly engaging. and they're going to deliver it at the highest quality, like higher than Netflix.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a no tall order, no short order.
I'll be interested to see what original Star shows come out in the future.
That's actually
There's
one
Big
thing I wanted to
Sky,
talk about.
which I haven't seen yet.
Mm.
That's a murder mystery in a small town. That looks interesting. Although I know where Cam's going here. Hellstrom.
Yeah. So the problem I have with this is they're releasing a cancelled show week by week.
That's dirty, Disney. You're doing us dirty.
There was a show called Hellstrom, which had one season. It ended last year.
Where did it originally air? Do you know?
I think it could have been
It was
a
a
Hulu
Hulu
original.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's already done. It's cancelled.
Yeah.
Right. It had the one season, and then they axed it, and now they're releasing it weekly as a weekly
And
show.
they're pretending it's
yeah,
like
Yeah,
a
we're
new-
getting a new episode every week.
Yeah. So what I'm hoping, because it never aired in Australia, right?
that would only
don't
be
think-
okay, and not even okay then, but it would only be okay if
they
they
revived it.
confirmed season 2.
Yeah, and as far as I'm aware, they haven't.
haven't.
Alan, who's sometimes on the show, me and
Yeah.
him were talking about it, and we did a little research. As far as I'm aware, it's just a one season show.
That's so
This
weird.
goes back to, I feel like this is an executive decision where they said all original shows have to be weekly releases.
Yeah,
Because
actually, that makes
so
sense.
far with
Yeah.
Disney, that's what's happening, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like this show just fell under that blanket of,
Yeah.
well,
It would-
even though we
If
can't...
you thought you're
Yeah.
going to subscribe just to watch that show that you didn't get a chance to watch on Hulu, think
Yeah,
again, you have to.
It would be nice though if they gave all these shows one more chance. You know what I mean? It's like a brand new service. Let's if the
Yeah.
original people behind it are happy to give it one more go. You know, like because you want to like you look at Netflix, right? They're famous, of course, for axing
Yeah.
shows. You'd want to have more of a Prime approach. Maybe, of course, not take Prime. Of course, they're very selective because they do give shows a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
Whereas Netflix, as we say, is like the scattergun. They'll
Yeah,
give heaps of
exactly.
people a chance, but not everybody gets more than a season.
Yeah.
Whereas I suppose Disney probably want to meet somewhere in the middle where they want to try and give people a chance.
Yeah.
But of course, you don't want to have a failing ship go 5
Yeah.
seasons.
I mean, we'll see what happens in the future because so far there's only been a few.
Yeah,
we got,
it's early
we
days.
got
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love Victor, sequel to Love Simon.
But I'm talking about like
And-
there's a few
Yeah,
Star
how it
originals
goes
which,
in the future.
which
yeah.
were probably in works during the Hulu days anyway or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about in a couple years from now, it's like Star Original Alien the series or something, or Star
Yeah,
Original
Like things that
completely-
might be discussed in meeting rooms now, which
Yeah.
will eventuate in like
Exactly.
a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, because we know Disney Plus has all the family friendly Marvel, Star Wars, animated kids stuff, family stuff, but Star will have the Hulu type adult stuff, Fox stuff. So I want to see what original series they'll have in the future.
Also, props to Disney for really nice integration with Star.
Yeah.
If you're a fan, if you have young
Very
kids, seamless. But if you have young kids, you can just turn it off.
Yeah,
And it won't be visible.
gives you the option right at
Yeah.
the start.
Which is nice. I like that.
Yeah,
Moving on to MASH. I'd never seen this show before because it's quite hard
so
to.
good.
It's quite hard to acquire for streaming in Australia.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
don't
only
think it was
available
streaming
on
before
DVD.
this. Yeah,
And they have it in stunningly good quality, high definition on Disney Plus.
yeah.
I don't know if it's magic, upscaling, or they just sourced, or they just found the best source.
We talked about this the other day. I doubt they went back and remastered it, so it must be upscaled HDTV.
Yeah, or they had a Blu-ray
broadcast.
release in the works at some point, and they just pulled the files.
Hmm.
Like, it might be in a vault somewhere.
I want the physical Blu-ray.
Well,
Yeah.
we do know that Disney lies about things not being available.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But no, this is a weird thing that happens with a lot of shows too. Like, was it The Americans, for instance? The show The Americans.
That's a good show. Yeah.
That's streaming HD, but it only exists physically on
On
DVD.
DVD.
Yeah, I hate that.
That's what shoots me the most is like almost all new shows that have broadcast in the last 10, 15 years are in HD.
Of
Blu-ray's
course.
but-
Blu-ray's not new, guys.
No, not. I'm just
No, I'm
like
saying in general.
for broadcast.
Yeah,
for
broadcast,
Because
yeah.
HD TVs have been a thing for 10, 15 years. So everything that's broadcast has been in HD. But 90% of TV shows only came in on DVD.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
so you have the source,
Yeah.
but you won't release it on the HD.
Plus it's cheaper.
Yeah. So now the only
and
time
the
I'm going to see it is on
And the
streaming.
argument there was polite is, but DVD's still the most currently used.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a bunch of oldies in Broadie still buy DVDs.
And in Southeast Asia and like,
Yeah.
places like that, it's like, yeah, sure, DVD's the norm. In Brazil, it's like,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
damn it, guys.
Yeah.
Can't you please get Blu-ray
Yeah.
players?
Come on, we're up to 4K now.
Yeah,
Get the
We're up
time.
to 8K now, technically, from our sports. But yeah, so like the fact that I could never really watch it in stunning good detail like that is amazing.
Yeah.
And it looks fantastic. I'd like to know how they sourced it, to be honest, because it's interesting, because it looks that good. I'm like, is
And
it
the
just
fact that
upscaling? Usually you can tell with upscaling because some things
Yeah.
will look a bit blurry.
soft.
It's like Alex said, they might have a new
Yeah. Like, I'd just like to know why it looks. It's like,
algorithm.
I'm not suspicious,
yeah.
but I'm just like, why does this look so good?
Yeah. It'll be interesting.
Like, I haven't seen this looking this good before.
And the fact that you don't have to pay extra for the 4K option like you do with Netflix.
Yeah.
Which
Because
might
that-
change in the future.
It's because they don't need the extra money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But no, then, of course, they don't need it, but they want it. You know
Yeah.
they want more money.
Yeah.
I think they're confident enough in their products that they don't need to try and push people for the extra option.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Like Netflix, of course, they have their different
And
tiers.
it is a selling point to get people to come on to buy
Because again,
it,
that does
to
differentiate
subscribe.
them in the market.
Yeah.
The fact that it's only like one plan
Yeah.
of different months or whatever.
Also, their application and support for Dolby Vision is nice too. Like
Yeah.
a lot of movies that you see on 4K are 4K on Disney Plus. Like if you see the Blu-ray in the store, the chances are at the moment that it's 4K on the Disney Star too.
That's
Yeah.
probably still upscaling as well.
No, the Dolby Vision, it would be harder to upscale into Dolby Vision. I reckon it'd be easier just to sort of rip the files from the 4K disc and like, encode it down, obviously,
Yeah.
because you don't want 100 gigabyte file streaming. But
Oh, I'd like that.
yeah, we'd like that. Like we have 100 megabit internet, it'd be fine. But it's nice so far. Back to MASH. It's presented in the original aspect ratio.
Yep.
I
Not
think
the
they learned
original
their
aspect
lessons from The Simpsons.
I told people, I'm like, you got to embrace that 4:3. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
No, it's presented in the original aspect ratio,
Yeah.
not the sort of not the.
Yeah,
I
they
guess
don't cut off the top and bottom as it should. be.
With this, I guess I don't know. I was reading about this, and you do lose a little bit off the top and the bottom, but we gain a lot in the sides for MASH.
Why would they cut off the top and bottom
don't
if it's in
know.
the original? Then it's not the original.
It's the negative. The original negative aspect ratio,
Huh.
not the original air,
Broadcast.
not the broadcast aspect ratio.
That's interesting.
So we do lose a little bit off the top and the bottom, but apparently we gain quite a lot in the picture from the sides, which is more interesting. I think that's interesting, the fact that they did that.
So it's in 4:3. There's still black bars on the
No.
sides.
No, it's like 16 by
So-
9, but we didn't lose. We lost a tiny bit off the top, but we gained more image.
Because it would have aired in 4:3,
Yeah,
like with the black
but no,
bars
but
on
it's
the
nice.
side.
It's full screen, but it doesn't look cropped.
Yeah, I know. I saw them
So-
watching it. It looks perfectly fine.
And apparently we
in
gained.
In that case,
You reckon
they
it's a
may
proper
have
remaster?
they may have gone back and if not remastered it, they went back. If they went back to the source and reframed it so it was proper to the negative, like you're saying, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that.
But yeah, that's why I was doing some reading on it.
Because all shows from that time will be 4:3.
Yeah, I when it aired, it would have been.
Yeah.
But I was doing some research. I was reading on Reddit and people talking about the Disney Plus version of MASH, and they were saying how it's this aspect ratio, not 4:3. And we lost a bit of detail on the top and the bottom, but we gained a
And on the
heap on the
sides.
sides. Which is because there's some shots.
Because
Like
you have to be careful when you do that, because obviously they shot it not wanting to show some of the sides, because
See a
you might have
cameraman on
crew,
the side.
crew members and all sorts of stuff. But if they went back to the negative and
Yeah.
actually reframed it so it's like, no, everything in frame
it looks
kind of
good,
interesting.
should be there.
If that's true, it's kind of interesting to see that there's like kind of workmanship behind Disney Plus in the
Yeah.
sense that they're actually going back and adjusting what needs to be adjusted to
Yeah.
make it the best
But
possible
it
broadcast.
It kind of also makes the
broadcast
show feel.
stream.
yeah.
It also kind of makes the show feel a little bit more epic than it would have at original air, because there's episodes with
Yeah.
there's like a boxing, like the second or third episode, there's
Yeah.
like a boxing match, and you get like a full ring, and they're like
Yeah.
fighting.
Well,
and
especially
it's
because
like,
it would have been shot on film, and so if you did remaster it, it would look amazing, like an old movie would.
I'm disappointed there was no option to turn off the laugh track, because I read originally it aired without a laugh track.
See, I didn't know that, because I always watched it with the laugh track.
Yeah. But
so I just assumed.
because I was looking up MASH before I started watching it, and
Yeah.
I'm watching these episodes that I've seen so far. I'm thinking, I'm imagining this without a laugh track,
yeah,
and it's a much more
lot darker.
compelling show.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's
The
all this
movie-
really nasty.
The original Robert Altman movie is like not super dark, but it's much more serious. And then the show obviously is a sitcom, so obviously it's
Yeah,
more
but
of a
it
comedy.
has a fair amount of drama in
Yeah.
it. And if you take away the laugh track, it's a very different
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
And the fact that it aired initially without a laugh track, and then they had to go back and they had to go back.
I
and
wonder
put one
how
on.
long after it aired that they put the laugh track. I reckon probably a couple years they realized.
Yeah.
Not even.
Yeah, well, I reckon someone would have been uncomfortable, and they'd have been like,
Yeah.
"This is a bit mean, guys. Let's add a laugh track to know people that
Yeah.
it's okay, to
Yeah.
make people know that it's all right."
Anti-war, that's not capitalist enough for our
Yeah.
broadcast, Fox Network
But,
or whatever.
I mean, but yeah, there's some interesting things with Disney Star with like all this MASH content that's
Yeah.
sort of unique, I guess, to Disney Star at the moment.
Mm.
It's interesting, and I think this is the last time we'll be talking about Disney Star or
Yeah.
Disney Plus in depth for quite a while, unless something big.
Unless the big drop, yeah.
So far I
Well-
reckon it's good.
Yeah. I mean, we've already taken up over half the show with talking about it, but we kind of have to mention that the Orville is now on
Yeah.
Yes.
uh,
Hopefully it gets a
Disney
new
Star,
life. Although that came here with
which-
SBS.
It did come here, but it's much easier to watch and much, obviously, like you were saying, the quality is much better on Disney Plus. And so Hulu is airing the season 3 in the States. So I'm hoping it's not a dodgy rights thing here where because it's still on, now it's on Hulu and then it's like, well, we don't get it. We get the first 2 seasons on Star, but then third season still goes to SBS or somewhere else. I'm like, I really hope it's just on Star, so I can just binge.
the first two seasons are on Star,
Yeah,
so we'll see.
fingers crossed. Looking forward to it. Please don't cancel it. It's a great show.
Yeah.
Also, really quickly, which maybe we've talked about before, and maybe we'll talk about another time because we don't have time now. But I still buy a lot of physical stuff. My collection is huge now, and mostly it's because I'm really scared of censorship. Because when Disney Star came out, they were already censoring the movies on the Star, the kids family stuff. Even though they were kid family friendly already, it was just Disney
Have to
being
adjust
crude.
to the modern sensibilities and so
And
on.
I was like, no, I'm not. That's bad. And now apparently I've heard, I haven't looked into it properly, but I've heard some of the Star stuff, some of the Fox adult oriented stuff, that's been censored, some of it. So that could just be a case of because it's a new service and they're just putting up the old TV edited for TV version and no one double checked it. But I'm just scared, man. Like in 10 years from now, I don't want to turn on Alien and it's all cut to pieces,
You'll have your illegal Disney disowned Blu-rays and DVDs.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is because that's the other thing. Like Disney released kind of like Nintendo. They released like Disney exclusive Blu-rays that are really expensive and were only released once, like 10 years ago. And I'm like, well, crap. Now I have to start buying those because if I go on streaming, it's going to be the weird edited version, and I'm not. I don't.
Not about that lifestyle.
I'm not about that at all. So not about that. So we'll see in a few years' time if it's still happening.
No, why can't they just it'd be cool if you could choose a version. You know what I mean?
Choose a version, or
warning label.
just a warning label. This
Well, they do
thing
that
is
with
indicative.
they do that with some of the old cartoons.
They
Like
do that with
the,
HBO Max.
See, this
they
is
don't
what-
do that with Disney.
This is what I love. Yeah, that's why I love Warner Brothers. All the old racist stars cartoons, they just have a warning. Whoopi Goldberg comes up and she's like, this cartoon is indicative of
yeah.
the time it came out. Please, please enjoy
But that's
it
the thing.
if
Like,
you can.
we
That's
haven't
all
got
they
all that
need.
time, but we haven't got much time tonight to discuss it. But that's an interesting topic.
Yeah,
Because at what point do we lose historical context? And it's important
Yeah.
to go back and watch this content through the eyes
That's
of
the
people at
thing.
the time and realize the danger and learn the lessons from it.
Yeah.
Rather than just sort of putting our fingers in our ears.
exactly.
Well, I mean, this is wildly off topic for our show at least, but you look at the way people have treated To Kill a Mockingbird because it makes people uncomfortable.
Well, that's the thing, and completely, or 1984 even, like completely missing the point of it because you don't misunderstand it.
Oh yeah, like
Or-
Donald Trump. It's like that whole thing. All the QAnon people, like read 1984. It's like you're taking
Yeah.
the wrong message from that book.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but that's
it doesn't mean what you think it means.
right wing people
Yeah.
lack any self awareness or any intelligence. Clearly. Anyway, we've blasted through most of the show talking about Star, even though I said we shouldn't talk about Star anymore.
Makes for good content. We'll be back right after this short break. You are back on the Tuesday review, and our feature review for tonight is Boss Level.
Yeah. Okay. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to rapid fire all the stuff I want to talk about, because what happened was Joe Carnahan, who is a writer-director that I love very much, I've got all these movies, I've seen all his movies, love it. And like over 10, I want to say 10 years ago, maybe not that long, but close to 10 years ago, he announced he was making a movie like Groundhog Day with guns, like Groundhog Day as an action movie.
That's pretty much what we got.
And I was like, any Joe Carnahan movie, I'm down, I'm there. And then, of course, Hollywood happens, and he doesn't get to make it for a long time. It goes through, Fox was going to make it, and then someone else was going to make it, and then they dropped it.
Development hell.
Exactly. Yeah. And he, you know, Joe Carnahan is also a director who, in a way, is like a spirit animal for this show, because he sticks to his guns and he speaks his mind and he doesn't play by Hollywood's rules. And because
he
of
makes
that,
art. He doesn't like. He doesn't. Yeah.
And because of that, he doesn't get to make a lot of movies. And and as with Boss Level, the movies he does make, it takes a long time and hard work to get made. So anyway, I've been hyped for this movie for almost a decade. It's his first movie, I think, since 2014.
Wow.
See, this is the situation. Like, he wants to make his movies his way, and the studios can get.
Yeah, especially
You
these
know?
days when there's so much.
He refuses
cooks,
to
there's
bow.
so many cooks
he
around,
refuses to bow down to any. He was supposed to do a Death Wish remake, which would have been like closer to the book and like more of a deconstruction of violence. It would have been really interesting. And the studio got scared, obviously, and made that crappy Bruce Willis version, which no one saw. And Joe Carnahan went off. He was like,
Yeah, I can imagine.
And of course, as we discussed, you can't do that in Hollywood, because then the guys with the money don't let you make
They
movies.
put their wallets away.
Yeah, he was supposed to do Bad Boys 3. He wrote an incredible script. Of course, they got scared, and the movie we got was pretty meh, He was supposed to do Gemini Man, which would have been amazing. He made this concept trailer a few years ago where it was like young Clint Eastwood and like old man Clint Eastwood, and like they were chasing each other, trying to kill each other. It was like cut from old movies and stuff.
That sounds cool.
And he was like, I'm going to make this movie. It's going to be incredible. And of course, Hollywood got scared, and we got the Will Smith version, which no one saw, and apparently was terrible. I never even wanted to watch it. But anyway, Joe Carnahan's amazing. Everything he does is great. And so this movie, I was like, we have to go see it. I was like, I know, and I showed you guys a trailer. I'm like, the trailer's no good.
I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, we watched the trailer and we just like...
Callum was like,
like,
really,
I
I had
like,
to drag
this is
him to the cinema.
I'm like,
He's like,
this is one of those
really?
movies that James loves the director, and we're going to have to go and see the director's shit film.
I was like, even if it's bad, like, I have to go see it because Joe Carnahan.
It's look. To be fair though, even bad movies. It's not, unless that's Harley Quinn. There's something nice about going to see explosions and lots of big budget action.
It depends on the level
at
of
the
bad.
movies.
Yeah, like if the bad is still like, oh, well, there was a couple good stunts, then yeah.
As long as it's exciting.
But sometimes the bad is just all bad, and it's like, well, that was a waste. Yeah. But yeah, so we were sitting in the cinema. I'm like, hell yeah, Boss Level. I hope it's good. Maybe it won't be. I trusted the director. You guys were like, eh. And then what, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes in?
Like 10 minutes in, I lean over to James and I say, already, the trailer hasn't done this justice.
Yeah.
That movie hadn't really got started. It's only like establishing the characters.
Yeah.
And already the film was like way better than the trailer.
Yeah. So like...
Who cut the trailer, man? They need to lose their jobs.
I don't know. The people who cut trailers are probably paid a lot of money and always do terrible jobs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say. So I want to go into spoilers, but before that, I just want to say, if you are listening, if you can, try and go see Boss Level at the movies.
Yeah.
If only so Joe Carnahan can make more movies.
Yeah, support.
Yeah, because it's taken this long just to get this film made. It's taken this long since his last movie.
I'm surprised he's one of the directors at Netflix or something like that snapped up immediately.
Yeah.
Like James was saying though, he's a bit of a dangerous guy.
Yeah,
but
Netflix,
streaming
but it's
shouldn't have
dangerous,
that
right?
fear,
Netflix wants to be dangerous to Hollywood.
Yeah.
Maybe they offered it and he was like, no.
Yeah, he seems like a guy who would be like, nah, I'm not interested in that. But yeah, he would make a good fit for streaming because then he could do whatever the hell he wanted and get the budget that he needed. But anyway, yeah, if I recommend going to see Boston if it's still playing. It probably isn't even still playing
If
anymore.
you can see it, go see it.
Yeah, I was surprised that as soon as I saw it came up on the Hoyt's email, the updates, and I was like, we have to go. So I was surprised it came out.
We've been lucky, yeah.
Yeah, I'd been following its development, but because of the pandemic and it was supposed to be released in 2019. It was shot in 2018, supposed to be released in 2019.
We get to see it in 2021.
The studio dropped it. They were like, no, we're not confident in it. And so it took till after, till now for it to finally come out. I think it's coming out on Hulu in the States, and it got a theatrical release here, which is interesting. Usually we don't get anything here, especially theatrically.
I think we got a good deal.
If you can see it, definitely see it because it's a lot of fun. It's a really fun
film.
Like action,
Fun's the right word for it.
As we discussed, after the movie, it's not just Groundhog Day with guns. Like there's a bit more going on.
Yeah, I read an interesting quote, an interesting thing, a Twitter thread by a screenwriter today.
Yeah,
no, yesterday, and he said that all good movies are a drama with a genre attached on top. So he says, like, you take all excellent films, and it's like you have a genre, whether it be in space or fantasy or whatever.
Yeah.
But the core premise is always a drama, which gets interrupted by the genre.
Because good movies have an
emotional
conflict.
core.
Yeah, an emotional conflict that. Yeah.
And in this film, of course, as you were saying, it's like a science fiction-y time loop deal.
Yeah.
But which just so happens to interrupt his kind of failing marriage.
Yeah. It's got great character moments.
Yeah.
So yeah, see it if you can. It's definitely worth checking out. The trailer doesn't do it justice. All right, spoilers. We don't have a lot of time. Time loops are so hot right now.
Yeah.
Every movie, TV show lasts 5 years.
Life is a goddamn time loop right now.
Every day is the same.
That's true. Even video games. There's a couple video games coming out this year that have time loops. The TV shows, movies. It's kind of
it's come back in the zeitgeist. Yeah,
it's kind of cliche now or boring. So for this movie to just do it, but an action movie is like, but ends up paying off.
Yeah. My expectations weren't super high.
Yeah.
But like I said, James, one of the best movies probably for the year.
Yeah, we'll see how the year goes, but at the moment,
so far,
it's up there. So it stars Frank Grillo, who. So this is a reason why Joe Carnahan. One of the reasons why this movie got kind of dropped so many times.
Frank Grillo is not exactly a AAA leading man.
Exactly, because Joe Carnahan was like, I have to have Frank Grillo as the leading man, and all the studios were like, no, he's not a big enough name, and Joe Carnahan was like, screw you, and the movie comes out, and Frank Grillo can hold an entire movie on his own.
Yeah, I was surprised,
he's a bona fide action star.
Yeah, and he had
absolutely.
But you know what? He had humor.
Yeah.
He had everything.
He's
He
badass.
ticked all the boxes.
Yeah.
He could do the stunts. He can make us laugh. He can give us the feels.
Yeah, the feels,
there's a strange term to throw around, but he has a visual charisma.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you said,
he works.
Yeah.
It's not so much about whether he can do the dramatic performance. He looks like a character. He moves.
Yeah, he looks like a comic book character.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
he's
saying.
like a buff, like old.
Yeah, but it works.
Yeah.
This movie could have come out of a comic book. Almost.
Oh, it's definitely comic book. Yeah.
In the best way. I don't mean, like, it's not like Marvel.
It's like a heightened reality. Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons the movie works. And it's one of the reasons why this is not a big budget studio. Well, it is a studio, but you know what I mean? Like,
the casting is excellent. Yeah.
Like, it didn't get the recognition it deserves because it doesn't have Leonardo DiCaprio or someone in the main role.
I think he it seems like he cast the people he thought were right for the roles. He didn't go out and cast who was so hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Frank Grillo and Mel Gibson. The studio executive's just like, what do you smoke?
Can't you switch it around?
Yeah, can we choose some different actors? He's like, no.
Mel Gibson is such a good bad guy, though.
Yeah.
Like
in real life.
Yeah. But well, Expendables 3 wasn't that good, but Mel Gibson as the bad guy, pretty awesome, and he's good bad guy in this.
It's because I think he has fun with being the bad guy. You know?
Yeah, he definitely
Especially in this
shoots in,
film.
especially in the scene where he's talking about the snake.
I love that scene.
Yeah, I'm like, he's just having so much fun.
The dialogue in this. So in these kind of movies, sometimes the dialogue can be a little annoying.
Yeah.
But there's like an overlay of narration in this film, and
Yeah.
the dialogue from the narration and also the spoken dialogue, especially
Yeah.
from like Mel Gibson's character
Yeah.
and some of the dialogue he has with his son.
Yeah.
I found it to be very powerful.
It's a
Powerful screenplay.
It's a good balance of like action quips, one-liners, funny dialogue, badass dialogue,
and introspection.
and like emotional sort of character, driven dialogue. Yeah.
I'm legit. The screenplay was one of the best
Also,
we've seen
yeah.
in quite a while.
Also, you know me, I hate narration. It's lazy and it's just annoying. But in a movie like this, or at least the way it's done here, it works.
Yeah.
Especially because you have to introduce the time loop thing.
Did he write the script himself?
He wrote this version. Like, I think the original script was by one or two other guys.
Okay.
But by the time it got to this version,
Yeah.
like this is the Joe Carnahan rewritten a million times version, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And he stamps all
It's Chinese
over it.
whispers with scripts like this a lot of the time.
Oh yeah, and
Every
there's
time
probably
it
a,
gets pushed
there's
back,
probably a whole bunch
delayed,
of uncredited writers as well. But yeah, as far as I know, like it was his script. And yeah, the narration works because you have to set up the time loop thing pretty quickly. Like, it's not one thing I like about it. It's not like Groundhog Day where the day plays out normally. He goes to bed and then he wakes up and it's the same day again. And then it happens again, and then there's a montage of it happening again and again, and then you learn through the visuals. And Groundhog Day is still the best and the first time loop movie, maybe. Anyway, still the best one. Like, and there's a reason for that. This one starts in the middle of like the 140th time loop, and explains through the narration. But unlike annoying movies, the narration isn't just like, how did I get here? This is how the time loop works. It's just kind of like...
it serves the action.
Yeah, it says... And it's like about the character's journey. He's like, I've done this a million times. I'm really sick of it. And he doesn't go, and here's how I got here. Then it kind of shows you how he got there. And then the narration's just explaining the sort of...
setting things up a little, yeah.
And also doing the... some of the emotional connecting.
Yeah.
We didn't say the premise, but I guess it's pretty simple.
It's
like, he's like ex-special forces
he
guy.
Doesn't know why he's in a time loop.
Wakes up
or
every
why people are trying to
morning
kill
with a
him.
whole bunch of eccentric assassins trying to kill him. He doesn't
Yeah.
know why, and he always dies, and he always wakes up at the start of the same morning.
And he remembers
and
all the previous
remembers,
deaths and days and
And
so
so
on.
It's just
eventually,
unfolding that mystery.
eventually he figures out he can sort of avoid these assassins.
Because he learns the
But-
routines.
Yeah, but like eventually he always dies. Like, he's just like, they always get me. There's always one more, and I guess he doesn't say this in the movie, but he has to get to the boss level. Like, he has to get through all the assassins.
It's almost video
Figure
game
out-
in a way.
It's
Well, it
definitely-
starts off with the video game
Yeah.
like Pixley logo.
It's
and
got
stuff.
like a MIDI music, kind of
Yeah.
8-bit music, and it's got the pixelated text. Yeah. It's definitely going for that, but it's not a video gamey movie.
No. But it's sort of inspired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh man, we only got 10 minutes left. All right, I'm gonna rapid fire, and you guys just yell at me to stop. Naomi Watts is in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's good in it.
Awesome. Will Sasso plays a bad guy, which I don't think I've ever seen him in a serious role. The big henchman guy.
Yeah. Yep.
He did a good job. I think I've only seen him in silly like comedy movies. Mel Gibson obviously having a lot of fun. Frank Grillo, Michelle Yeoh's in this movie. Awesome. Ken Jeong, very funny.
He's always a favorite.
I didn't write it down. I'm sorry, but the guy who plays the surveillance expert, also very funny. Everyone's very good in this movie. The kid who plays Frank
Roy's son.
Yeah, Frank plays Roy. The kid who plays Roy's son is, I think, Frank Grillo's real life son.
Oh wow.
Rio Grillo.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think he did a good job too.
Yeah.
This is also the perfect kind of mid-budget movie
Yes.
that they don't make anymore.
Yes.
Well, for a start, I actually said to you during the movie,
Mm.
some of the action scenes were expertly done.
Yeah.
Some of the car
There's some
scenes,
great car
the angles,
chases. Yeah.
There's a scene during there's a fight in the
Stairway,
stairwell.
yeah,
and
John
I said to
Wick.
James, it could have been straight out of a John Wick movie.
Yeah.
Like just interesting camera angles.
Yeah.
Which is something people don't really think about when they go into the movies.
Yeah.
Is how are things being
How
shot,
to make the action
framed,
exciting.
and
Yeah.
that's what I said to him. I was like, you know, we're
And
watching
I'm
gunfights,
sure-
and sometimes when you're watching gunfights, it's like, yeah, just hurry up so we can get to the next scene.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there will be some trickery involved with having it in a time loop. They can reuse footage that they've already recorded.
Yeah,
or-
but I didn't think. I mean, they could shoot everything once and then cut
Yeah,
it up.
yeah.
But they don't really repeat.
No,
footage.
yeah,
It's
no.
always a
But they
different
could
shot.
cleverly edit in different
Yeah, yeah.
angles and stuff to make
Yeah.
like there's probably some things to keep
Because-
the budget down.
Yeah,
with this type of
because of
story.
the budget, like there is some dodge CGI, but mostly it's
Yeah.
good practical. Car crashes, explosions. But yeah, like we always talk about, the only movies now that come to cinemas are $300 million kids
Yeah.
animated movies, superhero movies, sci-fi, big tentpole movies, or on the other side of the spectrum, very low budget
horror
indie,
films.
yeah, horror movies or like indie dramas
Yeah.
that go to streaming or go to small cinemas like the Nova. There used to be
There's no
in
middle
the
ground.
ye olde 90s.
A middle ground.
There used to be a middle ground where it's like $50 million.
We call this era pre-Marvel.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty much.
That's
PM. Yeah,
pre-Marvel.
like $50-60 million. Like still high. Good high production value, but like you're not blowing out the whole.
Yeah.
So this is a good movie. I mean, this movie could have done with a few more million, but
We still got a good product.
Yeah, exactly, and it is in that sort of mid-budget range that we don't see anymore. Okay, what else? All the assassins, really funny, eccentric.
Yeah, good personalities. It's like
yeah.
video game bosses. Each
Yeah.
one has a different shtick,
personality, yeah,
different ways to defeat them, and
different
so on.
style, yeah.
What I like about the film is it doesn't take itself. It's a serious action
Oh
film,
yeah,
but
we
it doesn't
said
take
this-
itself too seriously. It allows some humor into the mix.
We said this after the movie finished. I'm like, after Synchronic, which took itself way too
yeah, it's a
seriously.
palate cleanser.
This is because it's like it's
Opposite.
It's just
But
it's
don't get me
just
wrong,
kind of having
we're
fun.
all
It's
very
a
happy.
fun movie.
We're all very happy to go see smaller movies like Synchronic,
Yeah,
but the problem is they're not always cooked the whole way through.
Yeah.
Whereas this film, as you said, like
Yeah.
some of the icing on top might be a little bit
Yeah.
blasé.
I'd rather have dodgy
But-
icing on the top than have a soggy bottom. Cake.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly the metaphor I
Yeah.
was
You know what I
trying-
mean?
I was-
yeah,
trying
or
to make.
or to have a nice looking cake and then you cut it and there's nothing inside.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather have a bit of like dodgy frosting than
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a scene where he's flying like a sports car over a fence.
Oh yeah,
over like
and
a
it
huge
just
fence.
smashes
Yeah, and
to
I'm
the
just like,
ground.
that's what I want to see.
Yeah, or when he's trying to drive through the fence, it just
Bang,
smashes,
yeah.
and there's like, oh, good plan. It shoots him in the head.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like I love to see cars flying, explosions. It's exciting.
Yeah, just guys
and that's what
shooting
this
at-
movie delivers in spades.
Yeah, it's just really fun. The soundtrack is also really good.
Yeah, I mentioned to you like
Yeah,
like one of the first
some
scenes is like a
funky
synthy kind of soundtrack. I was like,
and there's some 70s
very
funky
nice.
thing, and then of course some video gamey MIDI
Complements the
kind of
movie
stuff.
very well.
Yeah. What else? Yeah. The character scenes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that like I said, the drama at the center.
Yeah. So obviously the movie starts off. There's like lots of shooting, stabbing, blood everywhere. Oh, also it's R-rated, so it's not kiddie. You know, like I said with the mid-budget, like it's not a movie we get anymore. It's just the fact that it's like an R-rated adult
There's no
oriented
censoring
action
going on.
movie that came to the cinema. Like we don't
It-
get
yeah.
that anymore. John Wick was like the last one that came out.
It definitely feels like we got the movie they wanted to make.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't compromised in terms
Yeah.
of censorship. Yeah. What else? Oh yeah, character scenes I just mentioned, but like it starts off actiony.
We get some
obviously
tender
there is a-
moments.
then,
We get some
yeah,
character
yeah,
moments.
As you get
But
to know the
some of the
characters,
best-
you get to understand
yeah,
the
some
drama.
of the best moments in the movie are just talking And one of the best moments in the movie is where he's playing video games with his son,
Yeah.
which kind of, brings the emotional, like, it's just good.
He gets the bond with his son
wholesome,
again and
yeah.
again.
That's the thing. It's like, you don't expect for a movie about assassins and
Yeah.
shooting and
Well, yeah.
explosions for him to utilize a month of his time loops just bonding with his son.
Yeah. Well, he gets to a point where
Yeah, you see the trailer and you're like, oh yeah, there's definitely going to be a scene where he spends 20 years
sitting
of
on
time
park
loops
benches and stuff.
talking
Yeah.
with his
Look,
son.
I mean, he gets to a point where he's so tired of fighting,
yeah,
and he'd rather just spend that time doing something positive, like bonding with the
definitely-
son he doesn't really know anymore.
another thing I liked is that unlike Groundhog Day where he has to do the same day over again and get everything exactly right until he has the perfect day and learns his lesson and then he wakes up. Whereas this movie is like every time he wakes up, there's like a different goal.
Yeah.
At first, it's just to survive as long as he can.
But then, yeah.
But that
And then
keeps
he's
the
like,
movie-
I have to find whoever killed my wife. And then it's like, oh, I have to find my son. And then
It's
I have to
also-
spend time with my son.
It's also smart writing because it keeps him from going insane.
Yeah.
And
Like,
it
the thing
keeps
about-
the audience
The
interested.
thing about Groundhog Day, we're talking about the thing about Groundhog Day is by the end of the movie, he's been insane and come out of it again. But, like-
every movie, even non-time loop ones, but every movie has that moment where the character has the dark,
yeah.
where they
Yeah.
don't think they can get
and
out.
like
And the Groundhog Day has the bits where he's killing himself and stuff. And this movie has that as well, where he's just like, just let me sleep. You guys can kill me all you want.
Yeah.
but like the fact that they have goals, it sort of avoids that trap of that sort of the cliche almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it keeps the story moving forward.
But
Yeah.
and
because
they
it
could have
keeps-
just fallen into the trap of
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
like-
know that the developments don't really take an actiony turn in terms of his bonding with his son.
Yeah.
But because it's an action movie, it has to move forward.
Mm.
Right? It's not. So some dramas can revolve around a central argument and kind of just sit in it and develop that argument.
Yeah.
But because it's an action movie, he has to be doing something. There
Yeah.
has to be another goal to reach. Whereas, if it was a drama, right, that goal might be understanding or resolving a
Yeah.
relationship problem. But in this film, the drama, of course, is the central premise. It's the wife, it's the son, and all of that.
Yeah.
But he needs to be active, whether that be the drama, and then he
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
out of the drama
Yeah.
as he's refined his character.
True.
He knows more about
It has to,
himself.
it has to balance the action and the
And then he
character
has
development.
from that drama, he gets the willpower to keep fighting
Yeah.
and to get to the final boss.
And he has the epiphany to use the helicopter, which he never thought of
Yeah.
before, which is really funny.
So
the
the-
minigun.
the drama serves a purpose. It strengthens the whole movie
Yeah.
because it refines Roy's character
yeah,
and gives him the motivation to get where he couldn't before.
definitely, yeah.
And he, of course, he learned. It also acts as a tool to impart knowledge. Like he didn't. He thought the wife had passed away, but it turns out the wife was
he can,
alive.
and he can save her.
Yeah, it kind of puts all the pieces together
Yeah.
for him.
All right, we only got like a minute left. So the ending of the movie is very abrupt,
Yeah,
and
was a-
is the only slightly disappointing. On the one hand, I understand why he did it, because once Roy goes into the machine that's causing the time loop to reset the world and end the time loop, it's like obviously the next logical scene is for him to step out and the next day has happened. That's kind of a boring ending. But if it literally just cuts to black when he enters the machine.
it's not.
And in
very
a way,
satisfying.
yeah, in a way, I was like, that. I understand that. Like, and if you want to be ambiguous, yeah. If you want to do we talked about the Inception ending last week with Synchronic. I'm like, this movie hasn't earned the ambiguity of
yeah,
the ending.
I agree. It was
Like,
slightly. It wasn't
Inception-
satisfying, but
Inception, love or hate the ending, it kind of earned that at
Yeah.
the end. There was like this huge
Yeah. And
mind-bending
yeah.
2.5 hours
because the
journey.
Inception was about that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas this one, I'm like, they definitely set, when he's bonding with his son, they set up the fact that his son wants him and the mum to kind of get together again and to go sailing on a boat. And he's like, yeah, we'll do that, son. And then the end of the world happens and he wakes up the next morning. And he does that again and again. And they kind of set that up. And I was like, a much better ending would be he goes in the machine and then it cuts to they're on the boat sailing, the
Look,
end credits.
I
Like,
actually think it would have been a better ending
yeah.
if it just resets. He wakes up in his bed and the assassins are trying to kill him again.
That's a whole different movie.
No, but you know
That
what I
is
mean.
another.
Same film,
Yeah.
but dark ending.
Yeah, but that's like a whole nother movie that I think I would have been even more mad at that ending.
No,
than
but
the
don't you
abrupt
think it would have been an
ending,
interesting ending? So,
yeah. Or like alternatively, like because if it is trying to be ambiguous, it's like, oh, did he die? Did he get to come out and live the rest of his life. I'm like, there's definitely a version of the movie where he has to sacrifice himself to reset the world, which is a darker movie that they could have done, but they would have if they were doing that, they should have set that up earlier, like much more of an epic kind of like, this is where it's going. Like, he keeps trying to save himself, and he's like, the only way to save myself.
The movie wasn't
like
heading
Looper.
that way.
At the end of Looper, it's like, the only way to save the kid is to
Kill
sacrifice
yourself,
myself. So they could have done that, but that's not where the movie's going. The tone of the movie, the funness of the movie.
It was leading itself towards having a good ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Because, like, he saved the girl,
yeah.
he did this, he did that.
The ambiguity of the ending wasn't the worst, but it's like, I think cutting to the boat and it's like, happily ever after. That
it suited the movie's tone more than just the ambiguity.
Also, like, because the movie's definitely working on a budget. It doesn't feel cheap or low budget, but it's definitely still working within a
confines,
budget. Yeah. And so it's definitely like the climactic action scene isn't that huge, but that's also because the whole movie up until this point has just been action. There's a sword fight and all this stuff. I am Guang Yin, and
I have done this.
I'm Roy, and I have done this.
Yeah.
There's all this crazy stuff going on, shooting, explosions. So by the time you get to the end, it's really just about the emotional reunion with his wife. And so it makes sense that there's not a big, huge... Mel Gibson is great as a villain, but he stays mostly just in his office the whole movie. And so it would be good if they could have spent a little bit more time or money on maybe a slightly bigger action scene in the was it the Osiris spindle, the machine that makes the time loop. If that chamber that was in was a bit bigger, and there was like guards, and then Mel Gibson was at the top like Donkey Kong, like in the old Mario, like the original Donkey Kong game.
It would have been cool to see like a Mission Impossible Fallout style fist fight.
Yeah,
you know
like
what
he
I
has
mean?
to, it's
like near the spindle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was thinking is the end of the movie, the spindle should have activated, and him and Mel Gibson are fighting, and they're getting tired and beaten up and bleeding. And then he throws Mel Gibson into the spindle, and like it disintegrates him or something. And then the wife is like, no one else can enter the spindle,
It's
but
programmed
you can
just for you, yeah.
And once you go in, you should be able to come out. And then at least, even if they're going to do the ambiguous ending, at least that you have the image of Mel Gibson melting, you know, of like, oh no, that could happen to him. But he's like, nah. Also, if they were going to do the ambiguous ending where he could have died, the son should have been there.
Yeah,
like the son, the wife, hug. I might die, but I have to die.
And then they can have that really awkward handshake.
Awkward handshake with his son. Benson and Moorhead present. All right, we're out of time. We spent way too much time talking about Star, but there was a lot to talk about with Star. So,
but I recommend Boss Level. Do go see it.
Yeah,
please.
go see Boss Level if you can. If you can't, get it some other way eventually.
It's actually a really good film.
It's worth a watch. And check out Joe Carnahan's other movies. I'm really excited for Joe Carnahan's next movie. Apparently, it's called Cop Shop. Apparently, it sounds like a Assault on Precinct 13 kind of thriller.
We'll see it in like 10 to 15 years.
Probably, yeah. Also, he was supposed to do the American remake of The Raid, and I'm against all remakes, especially of like Asian movies or non-English movies. But if he's doing it, I'm excited. So fingers crossed for that. Yeah, lots more to talk about, but we've run out of time. But yeah, check it out if you can. It's a good movie.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
Adios.
We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.